Welcome, welcome, welcome. Thanks for coming on a Saturday in June. I kept getting email after email like, oh, I've got family this, I've got family that. I thought, oh, maybe this is going to happen, maybe it isn't going to happen. But here we are. So thanks. Um, let's go ahead and just sit for like 10 minutes. Um, Not a long time, but just kind of to arrive here. So it's just a time to sort of relax into where we are. Maybe coming from a task list or envisioning what needs to be done or where you're going after this or all of the stuff. But just in this moment, there's this opportunity and this invitation to become very vitally right here and right now. We can kind of sense it in our body, the seat beneath us, our breath, the various sensations that are sort of inherent to this effortless now that is. And the thoughts could still be racing around or referencing the past or the future. But if we just become very deeply aware of the body itself in its presence, just right here. And then just kind of through that recognition, you might say, there's a gentleness that arises spontaneously in that recognition. It feels kind of soft. Almost like a sigh, like a deep out breath, like, oh yeah, okay. How settling. And there's just kind of an opportunity to let go of agenda or expectation and just rest in the recognition that here we are. It's a moment, a chance, an opportunity, an invitation to kind of gather one's attention, you might say. And there can be this very subtle resistance, even if one feels very present and sort of available to this moment. There could be maybe just a subtle energy sometimes it just goes along with the screens and the electronics and the virtual aspect of our meeting. But we can really sense if we open to the possibility. The togetherness, the willingness to come together in self-discovery and spiritual inquiry. And the refuge of that, and the connectedness, you might say. It's a chance to just let go, be present, and see where it takes us. Hey, Clifton. Oh, yeah, Nanette and Diana. Well, I don't know. You never know about connectivity and all of that with the internet. So it's always interesting because when people come for the discovery sessions, the one-on-one sessions, it almost always starts with, I don't know why I'm here and I don't have anything to say. I empathize. So we'll spiral in, and I'm certain what comes forward will be what it is. But in keeping with what had been really wanting to come forward, and so I had thought, okay, I'm going to use the summer satsangs and the one deep dive that we have this summer to really dive in again to what some people call no self. There's names for the experience that is not an experience, beyond self-referencing, beyond self-consciousness. And I had said the other night during satsang that when I first began in this role teaching, I really was very much speaking kind of about that almost all the time, and then I don't know, at some point just maybe felt that it wasn't as relevant or useful even in some ways for people. And I kind of, even though the teaching is really always about that, you might say, coming from that, we started exploring some different facets, and especially a deeper focus on the spiritual heart, you might say, the heart of matter, the sustaining and maintaining principle of life. Lovingness, and kind of how to bring what one discovers in the awakened heart, you might say, into form, into the life. And we really dove in that for a while. And then I started kind of coming around to wanting to bring forward the no self stuff again. And it can seem, number one, to talk about it is just almost impossible. So I will try to do the best I can. We will do the best we can with it. But also it can sometimes kind of seem like, well, how is this relevant if one is still very much experiencing through a self? There's no right or wrong to any of this. There's actually sort of no better or worse, although I think all of us can say that when the real contracted, conditioned, egoic self-identity starts to fall away, things do get quite a bit better. Anyway, it's kind of a long preamble, but I guess I wanted to say that, you know, spiritual teachings continue to reveal from whatever level of current consciousness and revelation and realization we are currently experiencing. It's not just a one-time thing that we hear something or we are engaged with something and then never again. I mean, you know, it spirals, right? You end up picking something up, a book up, or a piece of writing up that you hadn't looked at in years, and you reread it and you think, oh, okay, okay. Even if you thought you had understood it, which we do understand it from whatever current level of consciousness we have realized at the time. So even if something doesn't feel completely relevant, on some level, we are all the same, fundamentally, essentially. And that's kind of what transmission is about, and I've used this example many times, but I always loved back in the days when Tim and I used to play music, and we would sit in song circle, and if somebody would start tuning and strumming their E string, all the E strings in the room vibrate. So even if we're not consciously aware of the piece of us, you might say, that is resonating with a spiritual teaching, it's there. You know, I was thinking about how do we describe things to one another if somebody has never had an experience before, and I'm not saying that that's any of you. I'm just was wondering about this morning on my walk, and I was thinking, say you tried to explain nighttime dream world to somebody who had never dreamt at nighttime. They had never dreamt at nighttime. So you could say you would be using all the same words as describing this here and now, like whatever random thing happened in the dream, like the other day Tim was describing some dream where a semi-truck fell out of the sky, and then everybody was standing around and we're all talking about the semi-truck. And these words are the same words that we would use if that happened in this realm of consciousness as well. But all of us know what nighttime dreaming is. So if we say, well, it happened in a dream, we all know what we're talking about, even though the words are exactly the same as we would use to describe something in this state of being, what we call the awake state of being. And that is exactly how it is when self falls away. It's a different world, a different state of being, which is not a state of being, but the words really break down. It's like trying to use words that don't sufficiently describe, but they're just what we have. So we do the best we can. We do the best we can. Also, there's no distance anymore, so it's sort of like it would be like water is wet. It doesn't think about being wet. It is wet. The sun is shining. It doesn't intellectualize shiningness. It is shiningness. And in the same way, we are undivided, uncaused love. Do we have a conscious experience of that? Well, maybe, maybe not. It might come and go. As long as we are having, there's an I am having a feeling. I am having a thought. I am having an experience. There is this distance between what we are and the narration and description of it. Thinkingness is. Feelingness is. Experiencingness is. It's only the experiencer who ever believes that it is inherently fundamental to experience. The moment itself, the moment, the fluid momentariness, the effortless awareness that is the present moment. It's effortless. We can't create it. We can't manufacture it. We can only just be as it is. In that split second, you might say, before one begins to talk about the moment in one's head and then believe what is being talked about and then feel something about the belief, and on and on and on. The referencing to the past, the referencing to the future, the sentimentalizing or the hoping. Before all of that, before all of it, just right now. Right now. There is no division in that. There's no division. The experiencer and the experience and the experiencingness are all the moment. And somehow, when the mind is, the attention, you might say, is absorbed in that purity of experience, of the vital. It's vital, right? It's now. It's not the same thing as memory or the same thing as imagination. You can well, we all know the difference, right? Between the mentation of what happened, what's going to happen, what did happen, what might happen, and what is happening. What is actually happening. And when we're not describing it, and the attention just stays with the purity of the experience, what shines forth is that which is beyond division, beyond unification, but just is. And it is love. uncaused, not personal, not utterly, utterly, utterly intimate, and completely beyond personal, impersonal. It's immanent. And we can, what the personhood, as it begins to let go, you might say, of the very concretized, very conditioned beliefs about what the moment and the experience of the moment is, like, oh, that's a this, it's for, that is a chair, that is a table, that is a this, that is a this, that is a this. Well, that's all a very convenient agreement, and that's how it works. But that's not the fundamental reality of anything. It's not the fundamental reality. As we begin to relinquish ideas as being fundamental reality, as we begin to relinquish that, we don't know how to, although there can be phases where navigation is somewhat hard, but we understand the convention of language and ideas. We can still understand that, but we are not believing its fundamental truth. A rose is not a rose because we say it is, because we describe it and have given it this name. It is what it is, what it is, what it is. What it is. It's an expression of the great mystery and that which is beyond all conception. It's an expression of fundamental love, essential love, as are we and everything else. But we even just the language supports it. Language supports this idea that there is an I, capital I, that has something, and that is some sort of solid entity that everything else just moves around. A great act of humility is remaining still, just in the presence of whatever experience is happening. We don't go anywhere. We don't touch it. We don't manipulate it. We don't abstract into the past about it or fly into the future hoping it'll be over soon, or we stay still. It's a very, very, very humble thing to do. To, as Adya always says, allow reality to be as it is. Because to the conditioned ego structure, that sounds like giving up or becoming completely detached and uninvolved and, passive somehow in in a, non-positive way. It sounds like that to the ego. Well, I've got to stand up for this and I've got to stand up for that. And if the self-referencing, self-conscious, self-referencing aspect of consciousness stops, wisdom and love move. And that's a time for every season and purpose. Sometimes a time to stand, sometimes a time to be quiet, sometimes a time to be fierce, sometimes a time to remain quiet. How that moves is beyond ideation, conceptualization. The self-referencing must stand still. It must stand still. Without referencing the past or the future or trying to get away through defense or compensation or incessant categorizing, naming, describing beyond what's just, needed. There's a lot of talk about embodying love. And there's a lot of I's doing that. I am embodying love. I'm hoping that we are willing to discover the love that is. Already right here. We can see it. Even the mind can sort of get this before we have to sort of transcend reason. Eventually, that's got to go. But say you get a deep sliver, without any kind of story or knowing, now that sliver is, I got that from da-da-da-da-da-da, and it was made of this and this and this and this, and this is what happens when you get a deep sliver. The body just brings the sliver to the surface and eliminates it. It doesn't have to know the name of the poison and the story of the poison and the blah 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 of the poison in order to puke the poison up. We think it's so necessary, so needed, so important. Yeah, I just can't say it enough. This was really hitting home when I was hoping to find some words for today. The kind of humility, the humbleness it takes to remain still. Give way. Like water gives way. Like when there's water in a bucket or a still lake, a still pool, and you place your hand in it, the water gives way. It remains and it has all that give. The unadorned mind and heart are the same way. They, it's so hard to explain. I was just trying to, for me, it's the sense of it in the body is this giving way. Almost like a Tai Chi, just like move where you just step left and it all blows by. But it's like the water accepts every object placed in it. The sky. So there's this paradox because as we let loose of the personal, there's a period of time, a phase where one can begin to feel really lonely. Really lonely. Because one has not fully realized the intimacy of the 10,000 things, the no otherness, the all oneness, the collapse of subject and object, the collapse of personhood. Personal. But that structure is getting very loosely held together and is being mostly seen through. But there's still an I having that experience. And it's almost like every little, as Sharon calls them, precious pearl of personal identity that we give to love. There's a bit of sadness and grief that can come forward with that. And loneliness. A lot of people are talking about it with me. What's this sense of loneliness, you know? The paradox is that the less there is of the personal I, the less division, and separation, which eventually naturally opens into total intimacy, complete connectivity. You couldn't believe that anything was separate if you wanted to. It is a very, very, very obvious one thing happening each and every moment. Not that there isn't diverse distinction within the perception, but it's like the distinction between the head and the neck. You know? It isn't really, truly, actually separate now, is it? Any of these parts? They are not separate from one another. We talk about them as if they are. It's a convention. But it's not a reality. So at retreat, when I said, are there really objects out there? I was actually wondering. There is no fundamental division, no fundamental separation, no fundamental separate I that has things. And I mean, it's a valid question to go, what is the relevance here? What is the usefulness of inquiring into who am I really? What is all of this really? But when the effortless, aware, fluid momentariness that is becomes the context of one's orientation, you might say, love is inherent to that. It's unmanufactured, it's uncreated. We're not trying to be a good person or trying to be a nice person or trying to be a loving person, or we no longer have an I that's judging a me. You know what I mean? I know I could do the land of woulda, shoulda, coulda, the superego thing. And instead, the movement, the development, whatever you want to call that, the growth, is to greater and greater states of harmony. Not on some like trip where we are looking for it to be all good. It's just that there is capacity to experience reality as it is. So if there is horror, there is the capacity to experience that. And strangely, paradoxically, transmutation of the deepest disharmonious experiences is natural when we don't move, we don't go anywhere, we abide, we relax, and we leave it alone. Leave it alone. We don't pick the sore. It comes to the surface and it's returned to love. It comes to the surface and it's returned to love. It comes to the surface and it's returned to love. It comes to the heart and it's given away. And I don't mean this in any kind of exalted, saintly way. But there is the opportunity, the possibility, the potentiality of human beingness to become a redemptive instrument within reality. Not of the ego's accord, or the ego's plan, or the separate I's, I am now embodying love. It doesn't work that way. I mean, it's noble, and it can help improve our persona and our selfhood until, it's no longer a thing. I'm just talking about something different than that. I'll just read a little something here that I wrote. Writing the edge, it's this of unfolding, current unfolding, fluid momentariness, whatever you want to call that. Now. I mean, I don't know how to say it. Whatever the great mystery of this is, riding that edge of unfolding is a great act of humility, to realize the stillness that is, the abidingness, the giving wayness, letting go of the compulsion to clear up the past and or make a better future. The current experiential immediacy becomes the absorption, and this devotion to the past and the future, when it is willingly given away, can feel terribly dark, flatline, meaningless, because one is habituated to getting one's juice for life from comparing the past, future, and living in memory and imagination. We're devoted to remembering and predicting, and awaiting, wishing, hoping, sentimentalizing, and resisting. Get me out of this. But when all of these fall away, the pure experience can actually feel completely empty of our conditioned meaning or relevance. But the emptiness eventually becomes fullness. The fullness of love. Unconditioned, uncaused, beyond distinction. You might call it awe, wonder. At peaceness. And that's the true nature, the shared true nature, the natural state of being. But it's covered by the clouds of knowingness. What I know about that. And when I know that about that, then I behave like this. And this defines me, and that defines me, and my behavior in this situation defines me, and my reaction to that defines me, and it's very innocent, and I don't mean to come across as being against any of that. I really don't. I really don't. It's just, I don't know. If you end up on a call like this on a Saturday, I think some of that might be coming to an end for you. You know? So I'm basically here to say I get that. Everything, like a river, is perceived through the senses in every moment. This is fullness, pure experience. Just experience in its purity. But then the description, knowingness, uncomfortability, narration begins to mediate the pure experience. And it brings up resistance and contraction and pushing away and a sense of, I can't do that. A sense of unworthiness, a sense of separation, a sense of division. There's me, and there's all that. And so we build that house of cards, right? To sort of mask that deep sense of separateness, unworthiness, non-includedness. But Source is never anywhere but right here, where we and everything else is, however you say that. We just become less and less and less and less identified with that process, because we start seeing the process of something coming in, something believed about the whatever's coming in, something felt about it, and then an identity, a persona, a reaction starts fueling our experience, covering it. And then we just lose sight. It doesn't mean the sun isn't shining just because it's a cloudy sky. It doesn't mean that. The sun is shining. There's really not a lot to do other than just being completely sincere about one's actual experience. And in that sort of radical approach, something other than a conditioned, identified, divided reaction is available. There is a ability to respond without self-centeredness. It's not even a choice, really. I mean, I've said it before, and I know it's maybe not the best example. Maybe one of you can help me, but it's like slicing off the end of your finger in the kitchen. This automatically happens. A caringness, a compassionateness, oh my gosh, come here, sweetheart-ness, without thought, without choice. It's beyond all of that. It is how reality moves when it is of itself, as itself, without the layer of there's reality and there's me. It's a different world. Like the dream world, this world, the experience beyond mind-mediated reality is different. It's very immediate. There's not a lot of time. And I think somehow or another we've forgotten, or we forget from in certain really bigger moments, big waves, that the creative power, whatever we want to call that, the great mystery, the creator, I mean, people have different names that work for them, that are less resistive than others. Source. Is within us, as us. There is tremendous, that's not the right word. There's uncaused, unearned, just is love and wisdom beyond the thinking mind, informing the entire cosmos every moment, every single moment. We're so scared to let that be. We really think we've become so habituated to needing the decider, the orchestrator, the I. You know, we can see it really pretty easily if we just look at each and every moment it comes and it goes. We don't have, it's effortless awareness. It's effortless fluid momentariness. I mean, and perhaps the question will begin to call you like, what is this? What is this? And is it ever separate in any way from the awareness that is here? What is this separate I? What is it? So we have capacity to, we've been practicing, right? We've been practicing taking that backward step taking the backward step and seating the attention in that timeless, formless, dynamic, we can sense it in the body, deep in the deep interior of the body. And then sit down. Don't touch whatever's happening. Don't touch it. Don't touch it with a reference. I'm going to just read something and then we'll let you guys take a break. I think people are needing to take a break. This is from the original meditation, The Aramaic Jesus and the Spirituality of Creation by Neil Douglas Klotz. It's one of my all-time faves. This is a man who brought the, what was it called? International Dances of Peace? Something like that. He's a Sufi master and also a scholar of Aramaic. So taking the words of some of the Christian scriptures and translating them straight from the Aramaic to English and skipping the Greek. It's a very different scene when one does that. It's a very almost unrecognizable. Shoot, where is it? Oh. This is the way of return. I guess this is from the Quran, I guess, which is written in Aramaic. I don't know. I'm not the scholar, but this is a great book if you're interested in that kind of thing. And so in this tradition, before I start reading, the source of all that is, whatever we call that in our hearts, in this tradition is spoken about as Allah. I hope that word is not offensive to you in any way. It's a word that happens to describe that from which we all come. You, darkness, from which I come, as Rilke said. Prior to let there be light. Prior. Beyond, before the distinction of light and dark or anything like that. Beyond distinction. Allah calls to the hearts of all beings within all realms of being. Do you wish to surrender your individual will consciously and return together with supreme joy into your true source, or shall we be drawn back by Allah without knowing? All souls in the pre-temporal universe of souls respond spontaneously. Source, we long to travel knowingly along the mystic way of return, consciously along the mystic way of return. So during the final 2 mysterious days of power, the source of all power creates subtle planes of existence and consciousness, revealing on each plane a new level of love and knowledge and wisdom for the souls who will return along this path into the source of peace. This is the vast drama of creation and return, as set out by the boundless power and encompassing love and wisdom of the source of all. Somebody asked me this week, is it really a decision? Is it really a choice to surrender, you might say, the I? And I thought that that really spoke to that really well. Do you wish to surrender the individual will consciously and return with joy into your true source, or will you be drawn back without conscious knowing? It's not a good or bad. It's not an either or. It's just, I think something that is, its time has come. Let's put it that way. Its time has come. How much longer can we sail the ship of a divided I, a separate I? The me who is apparently in control and co-creating and has all the power. How much longer is that ship going to sail before, the fabric of reality becomes even more violent? There's an opportunity, there's a possibility, and obviously an invitation in your life, or I can't understand why you would be here, to live consciously, beyond division, wholeheartedly. But it does take some, I think it takes a lot of courage and a lot of togetherness, but that's just me. You'll find your way. The only way that's ever relevant is whatever particular moment is occurring within consciousness, and being completely sincere as that moment. And then that's the next obvious thing, the next obvious thing, the next obvious thing, the next obvious thing.